In 100 years, we've gone from this to this. How exactly did that happen? Hey history heroes, I'm Tempest and welcome to Time with Tempest, where today we're going to be talking about the history of plastic surgery. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel to see what hidden history I uncover next. Now, let's begin our story. Humans have been altering their appearance for centuries, with non-essential repairs on broken noses being mentioned in ancient Egyptian scrolls, and nose restoration using forehead flaps occurring in the 6th century BCE in India. Romans in the 1st century BCE performed minor surgery on damaged extremities. However, most of these surgeries were extraordinarily risky and usually uncommon. It wasn't until the 19th century that cosmetic surgery became of increasing interest to doctors, who began experimenting with different techniques to various success. But it truly didn't become mainstream until World War I, when a doctor named Sir Harold Gillies started an entire industry. Born in New Zealand in 1882, he joined the Royal Army Medical Corps after the outbreak of World War I and began working under a dentist. The dentist was experimenting with skin grafts on patients' jaws, which led Gillies to seek out a famed oral surgeon to learn his techniques. After seeing his work, Gillies persuaded the Army's chief surgeon to establish a hospital for facial repairs. There, he performed over 11,000 surgeries on men who had been injured in the war. The reason this was so radical is because nothing like this had ever happened before. Most facial injuries sustained in wars past were from bayonet or sword cuts, or bullet wounds, which were not often severe. But everything changed during World War I, when suddenly heavy artillery, machine guns, and poisonous gas were being used. Additionally, warfare was taking place in trenches, wherein men were forced to peer out at their enemies from the trench, exposing their face to injury. Shells filled with shrapnel were designed to cause as much damage as possible, and once they exploded would severely disfigure those in the surrounding area. Due to the complexity of facial injuries, doctors in the field would stitch up the sagging flesh, causing wounds to heal too tightly, or they would simply leave the injuries and pray the soldier survived. Dr. Gillies insisted these men be sent to him, where he would assess the damage and perform multiple surgeries to repair as much as he could. He would begin with repairing bone if it was needed, and laying down the foundation for his famous skin grafts. In order to cover sections of soldiers' faces that were missing or damaged, Dr. Gillies needed healthy skin that would not be rejected once the surgery was complete. This meant skin had to still have a connection to the body, and therefore blood. That meant that flaps of skin had to be lifted from the body near the wound and swung to where the wound was. The damage from the lifting would heal as long as it wasn't infected, and the flap skin would often take to the wounded area well. However, if a large skin graft was needed, Dr. Gillies utilized his own technique involving a tube. When flaps of skin began to curl due to the tension of being grafted onto the wounded area, he sewed the skin onto a tube, which went from the lifted area to the area in need of skin. Once the tube skin had successfully attached to the wounded area, it was cut from the lifted area, opened, and stretched, resulting in a larger skin graft that gave the doctor much more to work with. Soon, other doctors, like Dr. Henry Pickerel, began learning his technique and teaching it with the help of models like this one. And while some of these surgeries may have saved lives in the long run, not all were needed for basic survival. Some were purely to give soldiers a new lease on life, to be confident knowing their disfigurement would not be as jarring to people they meet. This is why Dr. Harold Gillies is known as the father of plastic surgery. With his techniques, surgery for the sake of cosmetic appearances was rapidly becoming a new skill among doctors. And so, a new industry was born. In 1921, the American Association of Plastic Surgeons was established to ensure the new industry would have standards and safety. With the advent of film, and women becoming increasingly concerned with their looks due to the advances in makeup and fashion, new procedures were being done more and more. And most of this early work was done in Hollywood. Studios would sometimes pay for and even demand procedures from actors, usually rhinoplasties or facelifts. and getting surgery could give some actors a leg up on roles. But these procedures had mixed results. Paraffin wax was used as a filler for the face and breasts, but after a few years resulted in infection, migration of the wax, tissue necrosis, and even death. Any area injected with a wax would either have to be removed or left in place with the looming potential of death. Mary Pickford, a 1920s actress, had a facelift done when it was still a relatively new procedure, and it completely destroyed her career. The facelift left her unable to express any emotion, which in a time of silent cinema was absolutely crucial. Moving into the 1930s, the American Board of Plastic Surgeons was established. This ensured that the industry was further standardized as demand for cosmetic surgery increased. Early starlets like Marlene Dietrich underwent procedures to create a signature look. She became famous for her sharp cheekbones, which were rumored to be the result of the removal of her back molars and a rhinoplasty to emphasize her harsh look. Rita Hayworth became a sex symbol after she endured a year of painful hairline electrolysis and skin bleaching, though she did also have a facelift later in life. In 1949, 15,000 people in America underwent cosmetic surgery. Marilyn Monroe was one of them. And she had a rhinoplasty and chin implant and suddenly became a household name. Luckily, she opted not to have her breasts enhanced, as the technique at the time involved inserting sponges into the breast, which caused numerous and dangerous side effects. In Japan, people experimented with inserting silicone directly into the breasts. This caused gangrene, which not only essentially rotted breasts, but resulted in the deaths of numerous women. About 500,000 Americans underwent a cosmetic procedure in 1969. That uptick was not only due to the rise in population, but also the increasing acceptance of cosmetic surgery and new procedures like breast augmentations with a brand new invention: silicone implants. Surgery also became more affordable, and the middle class began driving the market for cosmetic surgery. Another 20 years later, and 1 million Americans are undergoing cosmetic procedures in 1989. With the era of natural 1970s beauty over, increasing pressure by the media begins to drive more and more people to cosmetic surgeons. Liposuction is starting to become a common procedure due to the advances in safe, easier techniques, and people start becoming more and more open about going under the knife. By the 1990s, the number of procedures has doubled to over 2 million a year, and people are becoming a lot more open about it. Throwaway jokes in movies reference cosmetic surgery, and actors openly admit to having their breasts or nose altered. Then in the 2000s, Botox booms. And suddenly, everyone is looking a lot younger, or frozen. At the same time, social media begins to take off, and the pressure to look good online starts. By the late 2010s and 2020s, cosmetic surgery becomes increasingly common for people under 30, who often undergo procedures such as facial fillers, rhinoplasties, breast augmentations, and butt lifts. Today, over 16 million procedures are performed on Americans every year, and it has become a booming business. But even though it basically started helping people who were disfigured, it can sometimes pull a reverse UNO card and make people disfigured. People seeking cheap cosmetic surgery often visit second-rate doctors or even people without a medical license. This often happens with disastrous consequences, with patients commonly disfigured or even killed by work done in places like Tijuana, their local dentists, or even just some guy in his basement. Then there are the yes doctors, those who never say no to their patients and end up disfiguring or killing them with expensive, needless surgeries. But for those who understand the limits of cosmetic surgery and know that it's not something to be taken lightly or cheaply, places like South Korea are leading the industry with their groundbreaking surgeries. They are renowned for their facial surgeries, with bone structure surgery becoming a particular specialty due to their beauty standard of the V-shaped face. People travel from all over the world to get procedures done there, and the results can be so dramatic that sometimes certificates are needed to show immigration, as the patient's passport photos become unrecognizable. Surgery is also common in the country itself, with 1 in 4 South Korean women undergoing cosmetic surgery. And in other places, like the United States, injectables are becoming common among younger people and more affordable than ever. And now here we are, 100 years later. Advances are being made every year in techniques and safety, and the number of procedures continues to rise. With money and access, people can change their appearance to what they want in ways that wouldn't have even been possible even 10 years ago. So, what does the next 100 years look like? Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please remember to subscribe, distribute your delight, or leave your calling card in the comments below because the YouTube algorithm gods demand it. Until next time, stay curious, history heroes.